Welcome to CED Office Hour Live, a program of the Community and Economic Development Team at Central State University's Cooperative Extension Service. I am Ambrose Moses, and I'm one of the CED Extension educators. And I'm joined here today as well with one of my colleagues, Eric Smith, who is one of our team members. Today, uh, as always, we have a 1 hour discussion about topics that are relevant and interesting to the CED area, community and economic development. And this month, our theme is the business owner's dream team, where we're talking about the primary professionals that businesses need to have as they grow, as they start, grow, and develop their operations. And those professionals are legal, accounting, banking, and insurance. And earlier this month, we've had legal and accounting come in. And today we're joined by Nicole Simpson of Go Fund Your Life, who is going to share with us about the insurance aspect and the role of insurance in your business. And so what I would like to do is allow Nicole an opportunity to introduce herself, talk about some of her professional background, and then sort of give us an introduction of the role of insurance in the operation of a business. Nicole.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for having me on today. It's a great honor to be able to talk to the folks over at Central State and everyone who's really interested in learning about how to grow and expand their business. And insurance, we're like the red-headed stepchild. So usually people don't want to talk to us. They treat us like a used car salesman. So this is my time to shine and try to win folks over and say, hey, insurance isn't so bad. So just a little bit about myself. I've been in the insurance industry literally my entire life, believe it or not, because insurance agents are out there with the intention to protect and to prevent anything bad from happening. We kind of want to predict all of the bad things that could happen and really throw out a safety net or a cushion. So if and when those things do happen, we've already got something in place to be able to catch us. And outside of being an insurance agent, I'm actually a huge advocate for domestic violence awareness. And this is October, and we talk about domestic violence. And the reason why I say I've been an insurance agent my whole life is because when I was a young child, I grew up in a household where the adults were domestically violent towards one another. And ages 3, 4, and 5 years old, I kind of anticipated what risk was going to come with that. I knew that it may result in someone falling down or hurting themselves. And even at the age of 3 and 4, my first instinct was to go in the house and I would take all the cushions off of every single chair, every bed, every couch, and put it all over the floor. Because I anticipated the risk that someone was going to fall down, someone was going to get hurt, and I didn't want them to be hurt so bad. I wanted to break their fall. I was operating as a savior, coming in as an insurance agent to ensure that when the fall happened, that it wasn't going to be detrimental and we were going to be able to pick everything up and start over again on the next day. So obviously, I know that may be triggering for some folks, but I was a child who did have to deal with that. But looking back on it, I made it through and I started protecting people from the inevitable way before I even knew what insurance was. So of course I grew up. I graduated from high school here in Columbus, Ohio, from Columbus Alternative High School, went on to Kent State University, onto the University of Phoenix, and then earned several degrees and designations in the financial services field. So since 2008, I have been in the insurance industry in some capacity. So whether that was insurance and financial planning on life insurance side and retirement planning side, to offering home and auto at Huntington Bank, and then home and auto at Farmers Insurance. And then in 2016, I said, you know what? I like all these other names and they're all cool and everything, but I think I want to do my own thing. And so I became what you all are probably currently or aspiring to be, was a business owner. So I began my own firm, my own practice, which is called Go Fund Your Life. And we focus on insurance, retirement planning, and overall financial education to help people really understand how to be able to protect the assets that they need to protect and grow the assets that they want to be able to play with later on. So that's just really a little bit about me. I love, love, love insurance. I think it's the sexiest thing ever. So if you ever wanted to have a razzle dazzle convo about insurance, you are in the right place.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing how you make that reference to basically doing insurance so early in your life, and how it just sort of reminds me how that sort of imprints people's personalities and what they do
Yeah.
as they continue to develop. Because it just sort of reminds me how even in my own life at an early age, when I think about some of the major how as you grow up, you tend to every now and then have some fights or altercations, but every time something like that happened with me, I was always advocating or protecting someone else, which sort of goes along with the role that I have played as a lawyer, standing up and advocating and battling on behalf of other people as clients. And that's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So so when we talk about insurance, tell us sort of a little bit about the insurance industry. When you talk about the industry, we hear about insurance agents, we hear about brokers, insurance brokers. What is that? Well, let's say what is insurance first, and then let's talk about what are brokers and agents or this
Got it.
insurance industry.
So insurance is really the foundation of every wealth building tool that you'll ever have. It's really the bedrock of that, right? Because without insurance, all of the things are going to happen, right? All of the murder, mayhem, gloom, and doom, everything that's happening out there is still going to happen whether you have insurance or not. If you have insurance, then you're going to likely have a pot of money that is going to be available for you to pay to repair, replace, or redeem whatever needs to happen to get yourself back to where you need it to be. Without the insurance, you're going to have to dig into your own savings. You're going to have to go to the bank and get a loan. You're going to have to, maybe go without some things. You may have to eat peanut butter and jelly and ramen noodles until you can pay for whatever it is that you have to pay for. So, first and foremost, insurance is going to be the thing that provides that bucket of money that is going to protect you from having to use your own. So it is leverage for starters. And then after that, it's protection, right? It is providing you with protection for you to be able to take the risk that you need to take as a business owner. And that means that you are not going to be able to hold everybody's hand that you work with. You're not going to be able to be everywhere at all the times. So when you don't have your hands on every aspect of your business, sometimes things happen. Sometimes people inadvertently get injured or there may be an accident. Some of those things happen, and that's the risk of owning a business. And your insurance protects you from having to pay out of pocket for any of those kinds of issues that happen. So,
Okay, excellent. So that tells us what insurance is. So who are the who do we go to, or who are the people that play a role in us getting access to this insurance, or
yeah,
business owners getting access?
absolutely. So, insurance comes in a couple of different flavors, so to speak. If you think about what level of risk you have and how common that risk is, you're going to be able to go to a regular insurance agent. Some of the ones that you hear on TV, the ones that advertise on ESPN, you see tons of insurance companies in between the football games and the baseball games, right? They've got all the money, they're spending it, you hear those regular names. You drive past them on the corner. Those guys are big box shops, and they typically are going to offer an insurance package that is designed for a very common type of a risk. For instance, a barbershop, a donut shop, somebody who might have a little retail store. Things that are very, very, very common, you're going to be able to go to your standard everyday places. So it's kind of like a Walmart or a Sam's Club. If you want to go there and you want to get, maybe a roast beef or a box of Tide, that's pretty simple and easy to find. You can go ahead and do that. But if you want something that's specific or organic or special, you probably need to go to a specialty store in order to get it. So that brings me to the next stage. If you don't have a business risk or business type of idea that is regular, that is very easily duplicatable, and you have a specialty type of business, something that is very unique, something that you've created yourself, and you don't find anyone else out there that's really doing the same thing you're doing, you've got to go into specialty insurance. That is when you start having to really dig in with specialty insurance agents and specialty insurance brokerages. That means that we've got to find someone, an underwriter, right? Someone who's out there that says, hey, this is a unique risk. We want to learn more about it. And so they start to dig in to determine what your whole business is about. How does it work? What are all the moving pieces? And they actually curate a policy that is designed specifically for you if you're in a specialty niche. And that's going to be a higher end agent or a higher end brokerage that's able to handle that. In between, you're going to get regular agents. You're going to get your State Farms, your Geicos, Progressives, all of those folks and names that we're used to. And then even some insurances that are online that are going to allow you to buy the regular stuff that, let's keep Walmart as an example, where you can go and get your Walmart type of insurance.
Mhm. Okay, all right. So then are agents just with one insurance company and brokerages have access to multiple, or what's the difference there?
So it depends. So an agent is an agent. That means that you're licensed in your state to be able to offer insurance in your state. So that agent might be captive. So if you're an agent, I once had an agency with farmers. I was only able to sell farmers insurance when I worked for farmers. I am still an agent now, but I have a brokerage. So I'm still an agent, but because I'm a part of a brokerage, I'm able to offer insurance from multiple different companies to be able to fit the client's needs and to be able to fit the client's budget. So it just really depends. Typically, if you find an agency that has a shingle outside with a name on it, can only sell what's on their shelf, which is going to be insurance branded under that name.
Okay. So for a business owner or the small business community, um, uh, how does that play out? You made some reference to um, regular businesses and then specialty type unique businesses. Um, does that impact if a business is looking for insurance or looking for a representative or an agent? Does that impact who they should look for? I mean, who should they try to have a relationship with, or does it even matter?
So it makes the most sense to have a relationship with an agent if you can, especially if you're new to business or you're new to insurance. And the reason for that is that an agent who is really doing their due diligence is going to do their best to understand what it is that you do. They're going to be able to understand where your business is going and if it's growing and what kinds of programs are going to be best to fit you into. So that relationship really, really, really matters because we're paying attention. You know, I personally work with a lot of businesses that are startups, right? But based on the type of business, them being a startup, where they are, I can see that within the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, that they're going to outgrow some of these types of policies that we're looking at just because many policies are based on revenue. They're based on how many people they're actually touching, how fast they're actually growing. So because of my relationship, I'm able to structure policies that give them room to grow in the future versus just going to like a insurance.com that's only going to allow them to stay in a certain segment of revenue and kind of a really small opportunity for insurance coverages where you can't really add anything on and customize it. So having that is great, even if you do have a regular donut shop, barber shop, something that's a regular business that you see very often, but even more so if you have something that's highly specialized, because you're going to have risks that other businesses may not have that you may end up with gaps in coverage for, and you don't want to have those things slip through the cracks. So having an agent who is either a broker or who has access to brokerages where they can talk to folks that are outside of their particular niche is going to be the best thing, because that way you can expand your market opportunities. Because what we do is we take a basic application and we can send it out to multiple different markets for several different insurance companies to take a look at. And some of them may charge a really high premium for your business, where one of them might say, hey, I really like that interesting thing that you had. We're looking for more businesses like yours. So they may price it down a little lower. And then here's the real kicker. Depending on the relationship that your agent or your broker has with these outside markets, we have the opportunity to go in and ask for discounts for you. We can say, hey, I've got so much relationship with you. I bring all of my business to you. I want to vouch for this particular client. Could you please give us an extra 10% off? Or they've already got a policy with State Farm. And I'd really like to win this relationship. Do you think we could give them some points off so that we can either meet or beat the price that they're getting from State Farm? So there's a lot of leverage in having those relationships because we can do a lot on the back end in terms of pricing and customization that you generally are not going to find anywhere else.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So when we talk about insurance, I think that a lot of small business owners and startups, they have typically have had insurance circumstances in their private non-business lives, but that would be car insurance, maybe life insurance, maybe homeowners insurance.
Mhm.
Um, how does that? What is insurance in the business sector? So, I mean, is there car, life? What kind of insurance are we talking about for businesses?
So all of those things are going to apply on the business side as well. The biggest disconnect, though, is when we're used to just dealing with insurance as consumers, we're thinking, oh my gosh, what if there's a fire or a tornado or an earthquake? What if somebody breaks into my house? What if there's a flood? Most of those things are tied to property. We're worried about my personal property. If I get into a car crash, is my insurance going to pay to repair, replace my car? All of those kinds of things. Which, yes, those are all business risks that exist the same way they do on the personal side. The biggest thing on the business side, though, is that liability risk, general liability. On the personal side, yes, there are consumer lawsuits. People get sued every day. But if an attorney's going to pick up a case, they're probably more excited about picking up a case to sue a business because that's where they think the money is, right? So once you become a business owner, you kind of put a target on your back that says, hey, I can do something different. I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I've got capital. I'm making money. I've got a van with my name on the side of it. I've got a business with my name on the marquee, which tells people, which we all know probably isn't really true, but the outside public thinks that person's got a lot of money. So as soon as they make a mistake, I'm going to call up an attorney and it's their fault that this happened. I hurt myself, right? We all have heard of the stories. I slipped and fell, my neck and my back. I went to the grocery store and I slipped and I fell. I went to the coffee shop and they handed me a cup of coffee and it was too hot and it burned me. All those things are happening every day, but even larger on the business side. So that liability, someone saying, hey, it's your fault. I got hurt. It's your fault. I lost money. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. You're liable for my damages. Liability is the biggest thing that comes over as the basis on the small business insurance side. Because guess what? That's your pot of money that's going to cover you for lawsuits. And you know what? People are going to always say, well, I know that I'm not liable for that thing that they said I did. It's ludicrous that they're even trying to accuse me of that. I wasn't even there. That's not even the name of my business. Whatever it is, how crazy ever it could be, doesn't matter. By the time they start the paperwork and the process of any type of litigation, you still have to go to court and prove that it wasn't you. And that
Right.
takes time and that takes money. And if you have an insurance policy, it's going to take an insurance company's time and an insurance company's money because there is inside that general liability policy your built-in legal team and a built-in pot of money for settlements to make sure that these people who have accused you of whatever, or maybe it was a legitimate mistake because risk happens in business, they're going to write these folks a nice check and have them go away so you can continue to operate your business and not have to take out a second mortgage on your house because somebody's grandson tripped over your paint can while you were painting the back of their garage.
Hmm. Oh, excellent, excellent. And it's a very interesting that you mentioned in terms of that major difference being the liability aspect. of the liability and risk aspect of the business environment for insurance. When we do some of our workshops and classes at Extension, where we talk about business structures. We talk about the LLC, the corporation, sole proprietorship. We compare them looking at the ownership, the liability, and taxation. Those are the three touch points that we compare and contrast. And that liability aspect is really the biggest aspect that we talk about. And it's just interesting that you mentioned here in terms of how insurance is in the business sector is really designed to help in that area. So
Mhm.
do you have any examples or anything that you could share with us in terms of liability where the individual, because we have some folks who will say, well, I'm just going to rely on the fact that I have an LLC, so I'm not personally liable for what happens.
Mhm.
Um, and we try to tell them, well, there's more to it than that. You want to be able to, for your business, continue operating. Without insurance, you know
Yeah, yeah.
you might not be personally liable, but your business may be actually gone as well.
Sure, sure. I've got tons of examples. And when we talk about liability, I mean, we could talk for days about the different types of liability, right? There's general liability, professional liability, employer's liability. There's so many types of liability lines that we could literally do a whole day just talking about the different kinds of liability coverages. We're not going to get into that today, but there are two instances that come to mind immediately. One was a simple barbershop owner, and they did booth rental. Very common, right? The barber rents a booth, they pay their monthly booth rental, and then they have their clients come and go, and they accept their payments, and they don't have to pay anything else to the owner except for their booth rental. Well, there was a barber that wasn't making their booth rental on time. So the owner of the barbershop said, you know what? If you don't pay my booth rental, you can't come in and work. So they locked the doors, packed up the barber's and all of his stuff, put it in a nice box, and said, to the left, all of your barber supplies are in the box to the left, and you can come in and pick those up. Well, they didn't notify him. There wasn't any contract, there wasn't anything. And so they actually ended up being liable for some employment related law, even though he was an independent contractor. And they sued because that's still an eviction. It was a business eviction with no proper notification and none of these things. And so they went to court. The customer ended up winning the case. Not, and even though he hadn't made any payments, he still filed the claim that he was excused from the booth without any prior notice. This was just a feeling and some conversations, but nothing that was in writing. Ultimately, there were several $1,000s that were on the line as a result of that person winning the case. It came back and it hit the employer's liability line of coverage, and they came in and took care of it. Two things they did there. One, when the defense team, who's built into your liability policy, they immediately come in and say, hey, we've got this claim. We understand that you're claiming that you are damaged. What do you feel like your damages are? Right? So they kind of have some negotiations. First thing they say is, we want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That non-disclosure agreement is so important because you're trying to run a business. And if you're trying to handle this between you and whoever, and you're just saying, hey, it's your fault, you two are pointing fingers, it gets out on social media, you guys are going back and forth, this is bringing all this negative attention to your business. And now everybody knows that there's been something that's wrong. That's going to deter people from coming to your business because they may not want to be involved. That non disclosure agreement says, hey, something happened. Let's go in behind closed doors and have some negotiations about it. And if there are damages, hey, we're not saying that it's our fault, but we are saying that we believe that you got some damages. Here's some money, and close your mouth. You're not going to talk about this to anybody. You're not going to make public posts on social media about it. You're going to take your check in exchange for you going away as if this never happened. Check doesn't have to come out of the business owner's pocket, right? And now that person got some hush money and nobody knows about it. And that's great for the business owner. It's terrible for us from the general public because we are a see it to believe it kind of people. So when I
Yeah.
sit here and say, hey, this liability stuff is so important, it happens all the time. There are all these claims. They're just like, there's no way. If that was happening, we'd see it on the news. Well, you're never going to see it on the news because it's not going to trial. They have a non-disclosure and it's a settlement. Settlements never go to trial. They don't become public. They don't become public information. And that's how you protect your business. Because who wants to do business with the company that's always in court? You don't want to be the next person who is having to go to court with that company. So that could
Right.
cause you to literally lose everything. So that's super, super important just for that piece alone, that the insurance policy, they want to settle. And most liability policies are going to start at a minimum of $1 million. So think about that. They are coming to the table with $1 million in leverage to be able to work through this process with whoever is accusing you of whatever to be able to make it go away. And that's what happens. It's like a little Olivia Pope or a little publicist, a little special person inside your policy to go and do all this stuff for you. And you really pay pennies on the dollar for it because you don't got $1 million in the bank to be able to come to the table with that kind of leverage, but your insurance company does.
Right, right. Wow, that is great. In terms of that example and showing the different aspects of the insurance and how just that fact of coming in and um, actually helping to keep things sort of quiet as well with the NDA or non-disclosure agreement. That's a that's a very important and helpful aspect of that protection of that process.
Yeah.
Um, so what about the when we talk about the insurance, what about like health insurance? You hear about that a lot. Is that something that an insurance agent does for a business, in terms of addressing health insurance aspect for their employees or
So there are insurance agents that do offer health insurance. So you just have to find out what that agent's shop does, right? Just like there are restaurants on every corner, and some of them make tacos and some of them don't, right? Some of them make roast beef. So you have to know whether or not you're talking to an agency that does have that full platform, if they have someone that they refer it to. But yes, a licensed insurance agent is going to be able to help you with a multiple different insurance policies. So it might be health insurance, disability, life, even some retirement planning on the annuity side, your business insurance, your home, your auto. All of those things come under the same type of licensing umbrella. So you just want to check and say, hey, is this something that you offer? Some folks will say, hey, no, we only do homes and autos. We don't do business. So everybody's going to have their niche. Um, us, we just love insurance so much. We decided we weren't going to say no to anything. So we handle all of those things, including health insurance. And it's coming up on open enrollment time. And so this is huge for business owners to realize you don't have to go uninsured. But the first place that business owners should be going is healthcare.gov, right? Before they call an agent, they should be going out to healthcare.gov, finding out what they qualify for, because their chances are they're going to qualify for something that is going to be very, very affordable there, using some of the built-in credits that have been provided by the government, especially for folks that are business owners, because your adjusted gross income is way less than what your profit was the year before, right? Because you've got so many expenses that you're writing off. So they actually base your healthcare premium based on your AGI. So depending on how you filed last year, what you're planning on filing this year, you more than likely qualify for credits. And they said that something like 80 million Americans or something leave credits on the table all the time by foregoing healthcare.gov. So that's the best place to start for health insurance.
so when you talk about healthcare.gov in this aspect for business, are you talking about health insurance coverage for the business owner or for the business and its employees?
So the business owner, if a business owner is qualifying for healthcare.gov, then all their employees need to be out there too, right? If I don't make enough money to get an insurance policy where I have to pay full price for it as a business owner, I can't probably afford to pay for healthcare for my employees either. And they probably also can't afford it because everything rolls down. You're not going to pay your employees a significant amount more than what you're bringing in, right?
Hmm.
So tons of small businesses under that $250,000 a year mark are going to qualify for healthcare.gov.
Wow, that sounds like an awareness and education issue because there are a lot of businesses in that economic status.
Yeah.
Um, wow. So that sort of brings to mind another aspect. One of the agencies that we engage with at Extension as well is the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Um, and in terms of the coverage that they provide for workers in the workplace and including farm workers and things of that nature. So but Ohio is I think unique. I think it's, if it's not the only one, it's one of only just a few
Mm-hmm.
where the Bureau of Workers' Compensation at the state level actually covers the employment related injuries that occur.
It does.
To
It
it,
does.
so
We're
so
one of
so
we're one of four states, and
mhm.
so most of our surrounding states they would buy workman's comp from an agent. In Ohio, you buy it directly from the bureau. Um, there's one piece of that workman's compensation that is not included in the state of Ohio that's really important, and that's the employer's liability portion. So, of course, if I'm a roofer, I climb to the top of the roof and I slip and fall and I break my back, that's super simple, cut and dry, right? That I'm going to go on workman's comp. I got hurt while I was at work. Now, let's say that we add in an additional factor. I'm a jokester. I own the roofing company. I decide that I'm going to take a Nerf ball and throw it and hit my roofer in the back of the head to be funny as the business owner. And now that roofer has slipped and fallen off of the roof. Now we have an employer liability that has caused that injury. Guess what? Workman's comp is going to cover it to a certain extent because they still got hurt at work. But now that employee has the opportunity to go and seek counsel and sue for the employer's liability for that injury. That is not covered under workman's comp. That is something that you have to get from your insurance agent. And in Ohio, it's called Ohio Stop Gap, literally because that is the gap that exists in our Bureau of Workman's Comp here in Ohio, is that employer's liability.
Mhm.
Every other state, it would be built in because we would be selling it from an insurance platform. So business owners have to get that stopgap. I've seen those cases where someone had hired, a hotel owner had cleaning staff, housekeepers, and one of the stairwells was not lit properly. And a housekeeper needed to use the stairwell to gain access, and they fell down the stairs and they hurt themselves. Yep, workman's comp on one side, but they got an injury lawyer who said if those stairs were lit better and they had, all of these different things that are required by law, and they won that case.
Wow.
So that's the
So
thing. You have to realize that you need to add in some additional pieces. And then from a business owner's perspective, while we're thinking about health insurance and workman's comp, in a situation where your bread and butter is whatever your trade is, right? So you've got these employees, and if something happens to them and they get hurt, say they like to go skiing on the weekends. They went skiing on the weekend, hurt their ankle, and now on Monday, there's no way they can get on that roof, or there's no way they can climb and cut down that tree limb. The likelihood of that employee being dishonest and coming to work seeming like they're okay, and then faking a workplace injury so that they can get paid is much higher for businesses that do not offer their employees disability insurance and accident insurance.
mhm.
So being able to offer those ancillary products like disability and accident insurance to your folks will save you a ton in workman's comp claims because they're less likely to create a false claim from a workplace injury because there's another bucket of insurance money that will replace their income during the time that they need to heal.
So you've gone over and our time is moving fast here. You've gone over a number of different uh, insurance arrangements. So would each of these be the subject of a separate policy.
Absolutely.
So
Well, let me step back. The employer's liability and the stopgap, that would probably be in your business owner's policy, right? So that would be a package. And then, of course, anything health, disability, and those kinds of things, those would be separate policies.
okay, those would be each separate, or they would be packaged together. The health disability. You, I
So
guess
those
my
are
my.
all, they're all separate policies,
Mhm.
right? Because your health insurance pays for health, disability is disability. Disability and accident sometimes are tied together within the same policy group. But generally speaking, they're all still separate policies. But as a business owner, a lot of times people are saying, "Man, Nicole, this is all going to cost so much." When you get to those ancillary policies like that, you make them as employee deductions, right? So you're offering them to the employees; they can pay for it themselves, pre-tax through payroll
Mhm.
deduction, and it's really, really inexpensive when you buy it as a group. But it's going to save you money in the long run from having to make that Bureau of Workmen's Comp claim, right? Because your rates are going to keep going up with the BWC because your skier who can't cut down the tree limb is going to say that he hurt himself when he got on the tree on your lot. You know what I mean? That happens all the time. And we see it happen more and more when there are downturns in the economy and people are scrambling to try to make sure that they can make ends meet.
Right. So then I guess in terms of going back to the insurance agent and the broker, and you talked about that earlier. So is it possible, because we have a lot of folks who, when they start business, they try to do everything themselves. I mean, they'll even set up their own corporation or LLC, and they'll just file their form and think that they've done that completely, and not really even properly complete that. Is it possible for someone, business owner, to do the insurance piece themselves, or do they have to go through an agent to get coverage?
Um, 100% of the time, there's always going to be an agent involved because all insurance has to be sold by a licensed agent who's gone through the testing, who's been vetted by the state that they're in. Technology now allows for some of those licensed agents to be on the backside of some artificial intelligence, where someone might be able to go to an insurance.com and be able to purchase some types of insurance. So, can someone do it themselves? Yes, absolutely, they can, right? I am a really good cook. I love Jay Alexander's. My favorite meal there is steak Maui. And you know what? No matter how many times I look up that recipe and go on YouTube and watch the dupes, mine never tastes like Jay Alexander's steak Maui does. And that's because they're the professionals. They're the ones who know how to make it. It's their recipe. So you're always going to get a better steak when you go to the chef. So it's up to you, right? You can always choose to do what you want to do. People self insure, people decide to go out and get their insurance online. It can be done. And if you are really well versed and you know exactly what you need, you've been having the same contracts for years, you know line by line what to get, and you can actually go in and say, hey, this is the same as what I have, it might make sense for you. But if you don't know and you're unsure and there may be some nuances, it's not cheaper. There's no discount for you buying it online. Same way
Mhm.
they don't give me a discount at Walmart when I bag my own groceries. And I think that they should, because when I'm doing it myself, there should be, but there's not, right? So same thing if you decide to do it yourself with your insurance, you're not saving any money and you might be creating yourself a larger headache in the future because you just don't know everything. But short answer, yes. Should you? I wouldn't recommend it unless you really know what you're doing.
Mhm. But if anyone has a question, feel free to jump in, or raise your hand, and then we can pose that to Nicole as well. But Nicole, sort of along that line of oh, well, let me stop here. Eric, you have a question?
Well, yeah. First of all, just thank you. This has been so enlightening. Really, really appreciate that. Um, Asian. One thing I'm wondering about, I've had we had a question the other day with the kind of they were kind of in this kind of urban space, urban ag space, but they're like, we're starting out, we're going to build our budget. Like, how much should we build into that early budget? These kinds of professional services, such as an insurance,
Yeah.
working with an agent to do that. So I don't know if you give like a ballpark, like you're small, just starting out, what seems reasonable. And then also they're wondering about, okay, so how do I get to the right person that's right for me, right? What are some questions I can ask? What's the process for getting that right agent?
Yeah, those are good questions, Eric. Thank you. And we hear those questions all the time. So I'm not surprised by those questions at all. To answer the first question, what's it cost? That's impossible to determine. But what goes into the cost are several different factors. Uh, how much revenue you're going to make. So your business plan matters when it comes to you actually getting your insurance policy. So often I'll sit down with someone and they'll say, I've got this business, I'm ready to go, and I need insurance in order to go get sign my lease. And I'll say, that's great. What's your revenue? Well, I don't know. I just started. That's great. What do you project your revenue to be in the next 12 months? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to make. Well, that's not a good sign, and no insurer is going to be interested in giving you the best rate for that because you don't know your numbers. So that means that they could be taking on more risk than what they should be, or the policy might be way too big for you. I have no idea because your revenue tells me how many customers you're seeing, right? So if you have a business that is, selling shoes and your revenue is $100,000, whereas your next competitor's revenue is $1 million, then you're kind of a part-time shoes salesperson, right? So your risk might be a little bit less. Now, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what your revenue is, but that's how we base it. And some policies, in fact, all insurance policies will reserve the right to come in and do an audit. So whatever you tell us in terms of your payroll numbers, your revenue, all of those kinds of things, after the end of the year, if they're just like, man, something doesn't jive, they can say, hey, send us your P&L. We want to see if these numbers actually match so we know if we've actually charged you enough premium. And then they have the audacity, these insurance companies, they have the audacity to say, we didn't charge you enough last year, even though that year is already done. And they'll send you a bill for what they should have charged you based on what your premium should have been, based on what your numbers turned out to be. So having accuracy in your numbers is going to be really, really, really important. I'll say in our agency, because we deal with a lot of startups, most of our folks are able to get a small BOP that's going to give them a little property coverage and some general liability at basic limits at 1 million and 2 million for under $500 a year. We have probably 75% of our businesses that are able to come in at that amount. Now, this isn't that enterprise company, right, who is a yoga studio on Monday. On Tuesday, they're a barbecue shop. On Wednesday, they come in and teach classes and have paint and sips. That's something that's unique and specialty. That's going to be something that's different. But if it's your donut shop, right? If you're cutting hair, doing nails, something that's super simple, most of those folks are going to get out the door at under $500 as a startup. Okay. There was another question in there I feel like I needed to answer, Eric.
Well, I think I've had the question too, like, how do I go about finding the right agent or broker?
Thank you. Thank you. So the first place is going to be within your industry, right? So if you're a tree cutting guy, you know other tree cutters, right? Chances are you were a subcontractor for a big tree cutting company before you started out on your own, because people don't just wake up and start cutting down trees. They kind of have to get some experience from somewhere. So you know birds of a feather. So hey, who are you using for your insurance? Because they're probably already using someone who is specializing in that area, right? That's always going to be a good place to start. If your type of business has an organization or an association, go to the organization or the association. They are likely going to be tied to someone who can provide you with insurance, and there's probably some discounts and services that go along with that. Beauty industry, huge discounts and services that I can't touch as an independent agent that are available to folks because they're members of these different kinds of associations. They give great group discounts. And then, You just kind of have to do some research and find out, get on the internet, go out and look for these kinds of things. You might find a company, right? You might say, I get people who come to me all the time and say, hey, I've got a cannabis company or a vape shop and nobody will cover it, but I heard that Westfield is a company that covers it. And I called Westfield, and Westfield said, you're the only agent in Franklin County that has Westfield insurance. Can you help me? Right? So it just depends on what it is that you're doing, but just do your research. But chances are there's footprints all around you about how to get to the right person. You just need to be connected to some groups and some organizations that know. And Eric, if you come across somebody that's got a unicorn of a business that nobody can figure it out, send them to me. I don't necessarily advertise that I am a unicorn hunter. However, I've yet to have a unicorn that I haven't slayed yet. So if it's something really, really specialty, we'll figure it out.
So,
Well, thank you.
what are some things that I know you mentioned the kind of like your financials, right? And we've been
Mhm.
telling the small businesses that we work with, always have your financials together, your articles of incorporation, things like that. What are other things that would help you in that initial visit so that they can get an accurate, not necessarily an audit, but an accurate estimate on what their insurance would be? What helps you in that first visit?
Yeah. So having an active website is great because on your About You services, you're generally going to tell us everything that you do. So that way I'll know if my insurance has what's called an appetite for your type of business. That is super, super important. And from the underwriting aspect, as an agent, when I'm gathering all the information, the people who stand behind me are underwriters, and they're going to want to look at that. You know, people are always doing different kinds of things, and they usually publicize it. And if you are not doing what your business says it should be, so if you say that you have a pizza shop, I shouldn't be able to go on your Facebook page and say that you rent your pizza shop out for baby showers, right? Because that's not the same thing. You're a pizza shop as a restaurant. People come to your business to have pizza, or people can rent out your space now and use it as a venue. You can do that as a business owner if you want to, but those are two different types of businesses. So you have to know exactly what it is that you are doing, be very, very specific about what it is that you're doing. And if you're doing something like that, where you're doing one thing on, 5 days a week and something else on 2 days of the week, be able to break that out in terms of percentage of revenue. So if you say, hey, I sell pizzas and sandwiches Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday, I allow people to rent my space. Of that, I'm earning 25% of my revenue is from me renting out this space here. Now that allows me to take class code A, which is a restaurant, class code B, which is an event space, and divide out that by how much money you're making from each side and be able to curate a policy for you that matches. Okay. I can't call you 100% pizza shop when you're not. I can't call you 100% event space when you're not. So you have to tell us what you do, how you do it, and what percentage of that you're earning your revenue from. That's one of the biggest things, know what your lease says. That's really important. If you're coming to me to get insurance because you have lease requirements, know what your lease says, because there are some leases that say, hey, no, you don't own my building that you're going to be renting out for your pizza shop, but you are required to cover it as if you did. Some of those policies make you cover the roof in the event that there's wind damage. They want you to cover the building and the structure. Whereas some leases will just say, hey, you're just responsible for everything from the inside of the walls in, right? Everything else I'm going to handle. If the air conditioner or the furnace goes out, I'm the landlord, I'm going to handle it. But some leases say otherwise. So you need to know that so that I can get you the correct policy based on what your contract or your lease requirements are. Because if not, I'm going to give you what's general and standard for folks that are like you. And you're going to come back and say, I couldn't sign my lease, Nicole. Why? Well, because you gave me $2 million in liability, but they required me to have 5 million. Well, did you share that with me? Did you give that? No. Okay. They're asking for something that's above and beyond. And I didn't know that. So having all of your information together and just being organized as a business owner, that's the best thing you can be for yourself. And that's the best thing you can be for any of your service providers, because we're going to be able to work with you better when you've got everything organized in a file and you know exactly what you're doing it, how you're making that money, and where you're going.
And then finally, and I'm part of the CED team. I've been traveling, so I literally at the hotel, I literally turned on my computer and voila. But with writers, can you explain the purpose of a writer? So, like for instance, you're doing consulting business, you're on a project, and that person that organization that you're contracting with asked to be put on as a rider on your insurance. Can you kind of explain the exact purpose and how that protects you by any chance?
Okay. So let's clear up terminology.
Okay.
So a rider is not something that exists in commercial insurance. So
Okay.
you'll hear a rider in life insurance, right? You can add your spouse, your kids on
Okay.
as riders.
Okay.
What it sounds like you're saying is an additional insured, which means that they want to be added to the certificate of
Yes.
insurance based on the coverage that you have.
Yes. That's
So
it.
that additional insured language essentially is saying that in the event something bad happens, I want to have the same rights as you do as the insurance holder to be able to call and explain the situation and make a claim the same way that you could. So if you come and you rent my venue or you come into my space and you're only there for one day and now you've left and you're gone, and now something bad's happened, you and your rowdy friends tore up my place when you came in for your party, right? You came in to build something and you completed your project, but you left holes in the wall or there were screws that were missing, and now my stairs have collapsed. I don't want to have to deal with you. I am an additional insured. I have the same right to that policy as you do. I'm not going to call Nicole Simpson. I'm going to call Geico. I'm going to call Farmers. I'm going to call in and I'm going to say, I am also insured on policy number 33552, and I'd like to file a claim. And here is what it's all about. And that makes them legally able to do so as if they were on the policy with you, which is
I mean,
why you want to really, really be careful about who all you let add themselves to your policy, because everybody and their mother does not need to be an additional insured. Many of them just need to be certificate holders. They just need to hold a certificate that shows proof that you have coverage, but they don't necessarily need to be given full access to the policy as essentially a co-signer. Everybody don't need that.
yeah. But I notice sometimes, usually it's like your government agencies and your larger agencies, they'll ask for that through the duration of that contract, and then you kind
Mhm.
of take them off. So I was always wondered what that was,
Yeah,
what the
so
purpose
government
of it was.
agencies, I mean, sometimes government agencies, they're just doing it because it's just something that somebody at the top said every agency had to do. Um, because that insurance department just said that's how it had to work. A lot of times you'll see it with construction type contracts because they're really tied to that product's completed part of your policy. Because you're only going to be there for a short period of time doing your thing, and now you're gone on to the next thing. If things fall apart, they want to be able to immediately make that claim and take care of it. And they usually will also ask you for a bond and
Yes,
in,
a
and
performance
insurance,
bond and a
because guess what? If the insurance ain't talking right, they're going to make sure that the bond pays one way or the other. They want to be in position to get their money to be able to help correct that issue as quickly as possible. Yeah.
thank you.
But be careful, because knowing when you add that additional insured, think of it like a co-signer. You just added somebody to your policy and they have pretty much the same rights that you do once you've done it. And everybody doesn't have to have it. And you can ask them, hey, will you accept a blanket that says, hey, you have access as long as we have a signed contract? Or will you accept just being a certificate holder, meaning that I'm proving to you that yes, I have this insurance, and then here's my bond. You can talk to them and negotiate through that. Government entities, they generally don't lean in
Right,
your direction.
right.
But some of these other folks that are asking for this, they're just asking for it because they think that's what they need, when what they really want is just proof that you have insurance. Yeah.
I thought
Wow.
they also want to know proof that you've maintained your insurance throughout the life of the project. So I thought it
Uh-huh.
was more so that because a lot of times you have to show proof of insurance before you can even sign the contract. So,
Yep, and that's why they ask for bid bonds too. So there's a
yes,
lot of things that are happening on the government side that are different. And I'm going to be talking about all of that tonight at 6 o'clock. If you want to jump on this other
yeah,
webinar, I'm going to be on because
yes.
it's all about construction, bid bonds, and insurance. So we're going to do a deep dive on
Okay.
that.
I was going to ask you to talk about that, to mention that you're going to have that show tonight as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah. If
yeah,
you can
yeah, I
put the
want to.
link in the chat or send it to Ambrose so we can at least send it out to the attendees and to
Yeah,
our
yeah, I'll
listserv
send it to
about the
him when we get off. Hmm.
Okay, and and Nicole, I want to thank you. I know we are coming up on our 3 o'clock hour here. This has been very amazing in terms of the discussion on insurance in the business setting. I want to thank you for taking some time to share with us today. It looks like we need to have another session so we can maybe continue to talk a little bit, but. I did want to mention that one of our other colleagues, Renita Porter, who's one of our extension agents in the family and consumer science area, she and I are working on a program, just a paycheck away, and so one of the experts that we've reached out to has been Nicole as well to talk about insurance, and will be in more of the household, the individual, and the family setting, and so for those who are viewing this recording, feel free to look for the Just a Paycheck Away recording once that gets done as well, because it will address those things in terms of the individuals and the families. So, and I think we can tell from just what we heard here today, there's going to be some major differences and a lot to think about and to think and know about.
Right.
Um, but Nicole, thank you very much. Do you have any contact information that you would like to share with
I
us?
do. I'm so fancy. I'm going to share my little QR code. So if anyone's out there and they'd love to be able to connect with me, we can see to it that they can scan my QR code that will take you to my digital business card. And well, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let's try. Let's try. There we go. There we go. And so yeah, so anyone can scan that there. That will take you to my digital Blink business card. It will allow anyone to be able to book an appointment, go visit our website, watch some videos, and just really learn about all that we do over at Go Fund Your Life. We love to be able to help folks with all of their financial needs and just making sure that they're protected really, really well from mayhem, right? The devil, whatever you want to call it, something bad that might be looming around the corner. We want to help make sure folks have that safety net and the knowledge around it so that they can grow wonderful successful businesses and build ultimately generational wealth.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Nicole. And next week we will be completing uh, our series this month concerning the business owner's dream team, where we will have a banker come in to talk about the banking relationship as well. So again, Nicole, thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll be talking with you further.
Awesome, thank you.